Is Vivziepop really a bad person? Vivzi, while being a pretty respected member of the indie animation community at large, isn't a stranger to controversy. She has quite a long history on the internet, with her channel dating back as far back as 2012. I hear many people online say Viv is a bad person, but what I want to do with this video today is go over her biggest controversies over the years, and give my thoughts on them while at the same time giving my verdict and what I think of her as a whole. If you like these videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like button as well. Now on to the video. I've seen some people point out that Vivzi's mediocre writing as a way to write her off as a bad person, but it's not necessarily her writing is what gives her people a sour look to her, it's how she responds to her critics, particularly the ones on Twitter. Look, I'll say this now, Twitter for the most part is a hive mind of degeneracy, toxicity, and idiocy, if that's even a word. So, to be honest, if you're a public figure, I really wouldn't take anything Twitter has to say at face value. However, sometimes these critics can be correct, as in the valid critiques of Vivzi's, being that of how she writes her humor, that being non-stop swearing in her shows, the sexual humor in the shows being as common could be, and it's just really beating the dead horse into the ground with her humor, until said horse is nothing but a pile of dust at that point, and then she continues. Seriously, it's that overused. I covered this in my last video if you want to go check that out. Anyways, this is a very real concern for not only critics, but a lot of her audience, since it can hinder the enjoyment for some people, me being one of those people. To be honest though, it is completely up to Vivviane if she wants to take the criticism or not, or go back and fix the show's writing. It is her show after all, and I am a firm believer if don't like it, don't watch it. However, my only problem with Vivviane is all of this, that she feels the need to respond to a lot of her critics. All that does is just give people ammunition to use against her, like, oh my god, Viv is so terrible, look, she can't take criticism, you guys. Now, could Viv be a little more respectful to her Twitter replies and just not be such a smartass? Well, of course she could. But I wouldn't write her off as a bad person for that. It's completely up to her whether she wants to take your criticism or not. Just thank them for the input, but no one's making you watch the show she makes. I'm sure there are plenty of viewers out there that actually like how she writes her humor. To that I say to those people, are you guys okay? But seriously, no, this is not a good point to prove she's a bad person, it's just her bad writing. I just really think that Viv should not respond to these people, since that's what some of these trolls want, is for her to respond to them. They don't always give constructive criticism and just kind of want to take her show down. Her replying to tons of trolls and some critics on Twitter just makes her look bad to some people. Viv, it's up to you if you really want to take the critics' advice, but try to not fill your head with keyboard warriors on Twitter. That stuff can mess with your head if you interact with them long enough. Just try and hear out some of the criticism, particularly with the writing, and maybe just try implementing it. Who knows, it might work. Because there are fans out there who generally want the show to do even better than how it's already doing. Another point I've seen thrown around saying Vivzi is a bad person has to do with her merchandise. So from Hazbin Hotel, if you're a fan of the show, you certainly know of the character Valentino, which if you've seen the show, he abuses Angel Dust in a bad way and does other insane stuff in the show. He even owns Angel Dust in a contract, and he's a very toxic character overall. However, people began making a fuss on where else but Twitter about Viv making and selling merch of Valentino. She's selling merch of an abusive character. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. People were really making a fuss over Vivviane selling merch of a villain. Let me repeat that, Valentino is a villain. That is the entire point to his character. He's not a good person. So why is it bad to sell merchandise of villains? There's plenty of merchandise out there of Darth Vader, for example. I'd argue he's even worse than Valentino is. He slaughters innocent people, and he even force chokes to death his own wife, and even men who actually work under him. He just kills them like it's nothing. It's not that hard to piss Darth Vader off. Yet no one ever complains about the many Lego figures, which are sold to children by the way, being made of him, despite being the most evil man in the galaxy and one of the most evil people in all of cinema. So the merch argument of her, I guess, promoting sexual assault because the character's a villain is just false and absolutely ridiculous. My advice, don't like the Valentino merch, then don't buy it. I mean, no one's making you buy the merch. Now, if she was making merchandise of real criminals and selling them, maybe you should really start to question Viv's morals, but she's not. Now, this criticism of Viv is a bit on the older side, but I still occasionally see it brought up to points against her from time to time, and that's her supposedly tracing and plagiarizing art pieces from other animators and animations. However, if you look at these examples, these are obviously based off old memes and clips to pay tribute to them, and it's more so adapting them rather than deliberately trying to copy the animations as a way to cut corners and sweep it under the rug. So this point is really a non-issue to me. However, there is one controversy I see brought up a ton about Vivviane, and that is in two particular scenes in her shows in particular. having the R word being heavily implied and is played up for laughs. The first example is that of Sir Pench's being dragged into a room and having what happened to him as well in Helluva Boss. Something similar happens to Moxie, and after he walks out, it's very clear what happened to him, and it wasn't anything good. Again, both scenes are played up for laughs. I will admit, these two scenes, are they funny? No, not really. Not just because the joke is a little too dark for me, it just isn't funny on its own merit and feels very distasteful. Both jokes did rub me the wrong way, but I guess she could use that theming for a villain such as Valentino, as it has meaning for the character's arc and has significance to the actual story and is taken seriously. However, in these two instances, when it's used like this as just quick joke, just to get a quick laugh out of some really messed up people, the episode would just go perfectly fine excluding that, so it feels really unnecessary and forced to keep in there, and it's really disturbing. But why I bring this up is, does this make Vivzie a bad person in this particular example? I would really say no. It's just her having a bad sense of humor in her show, not her actually finding it happening in the real world funny, nor does it mean she supports it in any way, shape, or form. I'm sure she doesn't, but if I was her, I'd really chill out with those jokes in your shows, at least make it be taken more seriously and have some meaning to the narrative, not to make it some cheap joke that is just more disturbing than anything else. I'm going to review this last point here for the video since there has been tons of Vivziepop controversies over these years. This video is more so to make a discussion in the comments and to see what everyone else thinks of Vivziepop by doing a quick review of some of her criticisms. Last point I have seen thrown around a ton to kind of prove she's a bad person is Vivziepop allegedly mistreating her employees and animators who work under her, that at Spindlehorse team, which, are responsible for Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel's animation and everything surrounding it and the writing. An ex-employee of Spindlehorse by the name of Aaron Frost made a Tumblr post years ago alleging that mistreatment of the employees occurred, essentially claims of overwork with strict deadlines. However, a lot of her team members at Spindlehorse currently working there explained that they were allowed to pick which seconds to specifically animate and are treated very well by everyone there, including Vivviane herself, with multiple people coming forward saying that they are allowed to pick just how much work they have to do per month, and Viv is a very flexible person in the workplace and are let to do as much work as they want to do, and Viv is described as a patient person and does not rush or overwork her workers. She's even described as patient and respectable person while working on the shows, said by Monica Franco, who, by the way, is the voice actress for Vaggie in the Hazbin Hotel pilot. So overall, many people came to Vivzie's defense telling completely contradictory stories than what these claims of this Aaron Frost guy were coming from. There's no solid evidence for or against Aaron's claims. However, there is more testimony disproving Aaron's claims and could very well be some kind of revenge vendetta. But who knows? I didn't work for them. I'm just telling you what was said. That was a brief summary of some of the many Vivziepop controversies over these past few years, or her whole career really. But now it's your turn to make your decision. Do you think Vivziepop is as bad as people say? Or do you think that she isn't half bad? Let me know down in the comments, be sure to subscribe, and this is me, Axel, signing off.